I'm a DJ, journalist, radio presenter, record label owner. Started the label in 2001. It was called All City Music and mainly put out hip hop and rap. Started out putting out a lot of US hip hop, and the last couple of years started to put out a lot more homegrown UK acts, one of them being Sway, who was a Mercury nominated artist in 2006. I've been DJing since I was about 16. That's quite a long time ago. But yeah, I started off doing pirate radio just after I finished school, and yeah, always into hip hop from day one really. Sort of very involved in the hip hop scene, and from the very early days of hip hop and rap. And it's something I've kind of never quite got out of. You know, since working at XFM, I've got more into the rock and indie scene. So that's just naturally drawn me into that kind of that arena, which has been great because it's really broadened me out, and I've seen a lot of. I think hip hop and rock have got a lot in common in terms of the energy and the kind of the rawness of the music. The way I kind of discover a lot of my artists, I mean, they're through personal connections. So a lot of the US hip hop I put out, I've either DJ'd for them or played their records on the radio or played them in the clubs, or I've written about them in magazines. So hence when they have a project, through word of mouth and them understanding the European market, they would approach me to put out their records. With the UK hip hop, I mean, Sway is a perfect example. He'd come on my radio show as an up-and-coming artist. He'd sent me his mixtape, which sounded great. I had a pretty open door policy on the show anyway, so he came in, did a session, and I was always looking for the next UK artist I could work with. I'm very fussy when it comes to homegrown music, and he made a real impression on me. So it was a no-brainer. I kind of approached him and said, "What are you trying to do with your music?" And he said, "I want to put out a mix CD or a promo CD," and it went from there. Within 2 years, he's a Mercury nominated artist. I hooked Sway up with a producer called Mark Ronson when we were in New York. We did a session at his studio, and Mark Ronson did some work for Robbie Williams recently on his album, and Mark was sort of plugging Robbie and sort of telling me who the hottest hip hop acts were in the UK, because Robbie wanted an American rapper to appear on his album, or a rapper to appear on his album, and Mark Ronson said you should get Sway on there, and Robbie hadn't heard of Sway, so Mark Ronson gave Robbie the CD. He texted back to Mark and said, "This is the best UK hip hop I've ever heard. It's really funny, it's really witty, really clever, really well produced. Pass some my regards to Sway." So Sway sent that to me, and it had Robbie's original number. So I logged his mobile in my phone. I've known 50 Cent quite a long time. I used to represent a US record label who put 50 Cent out before he signed a big major label deal. But I've sold over 100,000 of his early CDs in UK and Europe, so I'm not just a radio DJ in that respect. I have dealt with him on a business basis before as well. I've been on tour with Zane Lowe from Radio 1, so we've done like maybe 20 university dates, and they're all 18 to 21, 18 to 22 year olds in fact. And we recently did the Samsung Band on Your Campus gigs. They were university dates, so I'm seeing a lot more younger people coming to see me DJ. I really enjoy sort of DJing outside of London. I love doing the university gigs. I love doing clubs outside London. I find you get so much more energy from the audiences there, and you just naturally do find that they're a lot younger. They are definitely between the 18 and 25 sort of age bracket. Artists are so accessible these days. If they have a MySpace and you come across them, people can find you that much more easily, and when you're playing music on your site, you've got access to millions and millions of people at any given time, whereas if traditionally in the past, if you were an artist, you had to be promoted and marketed by a record company for people to hear about you. Now you can do your own promotion, you can be your own marketing department. It's pretty interesting times. When I feel something's going to be big or an artist is going to be hot, it is because I've either come across them on MySpace and I've seen they've got some like 2 million hits, they haven't got a record deal, and I'm like, well, someone's going to grab them any minute now because they're going to be huge. It's bound to happen. Either that, or I've heard industry buzz, or people talk about them, or I've heard the record themselves, or maybe I've heard it a lot on radio and people talk about it on radio, or maybe I'm after them. I'm kind of thinking of working with them, and I think no one's really tapped into their talent yet. Last year, 2006, was hailed as a vintage year by the NME for guitar music and indie and rock and singer-songwriter music. You know, and yeah, it's probably, that's the first year for a little while where it's been that way. You know, I think previous to that, 2 or 3 years before that, it's all been about hip hop and R&B. Before that, it was about dance, drum and bass. Before that, it was about dance music. Now, even this year, I can see a big resurgence in dance music. You know, everything goes around in cycles. You know, it's you know, people say, oh, hip hop's dead, or rock's dead, or whatever. It's never the case. You know, it just goes around in cycles. You just have to wait for you have to wait in the holding pattern and wait for your turn, really.